Hello from St Mary's, Kelvedon. This is for the first Sunday after Trinity, this is Sunday the 6th of June. And the Gospel reading is the rather strange and unsettling passage of Mark chapter 3 verses 20 to 35. Conflict is never very far away in all four Gospels, but is particularly pronounced in Mark. We've got two types of conflict here. The first is between Jesus and the religious authorities, here the scribes from Jerusalem, who've come down and accused Jesus of being an agent of the devil, effectively. We already know the authorities want to destroy Jesus from earlier in chapter 3. It doesn't take long for Jesus to point out their flawed logic. If a kingdom is divided against itself, he tells them, it cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, it cannot stand. And if Satan is divided against himself, he will not stand. And those disturbing lines a bit later on about Jesus saying that those who sin against the Holy Spirit cannot be forgiven have caused a great deal of anxiety down the centuries. But it's worth pointing out that they are aimed at those who consciously judge good as evil, the best as the worst, knowing that good is good. As one writer puts it, failure can go no deeper. We may think in our own time of those who maliciously and consciously peddle on further on COVID-19 conspiracies, even if they know or suspect them to be completely false. Though most of those who put them out, of course, are sadly, I imagine, rather deluded. All this talk of houses divided brings to mind the divisions in our own society now. I wonder how much humans actually need conflict and division in order to exist. Divisions within and not just between political parties, not least the huge row that's gone now between Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson and his government. Divisions within parties, divisions in the church. There are many of those, not just those between entrenched congregations, but within churches themselves, sometimes over major issues like human identity and sexuality or how to interpret the Bible, but often about quite trivial things really. And divisions in our own lives, in our own families, some perhaps heightened and made worse by the pandemic. Which brings me to the second type of conflict in this passage, between Jesus and his family. Perhaps that is a house divided in a way, for they come at the beginning of the passage to restrain him. Interesting translation of the Greek word, because 12 chapters later when Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, it's the word Judas uses to tell the soldiers to arrest Jesus when they come to get him. Jesus hears that his mother and brothers and sisters are outside, and he looks around and says, "Who are my mother and my brothers?" Looking at those who are listening to him, he says, "Whoever does the will of God is my mother and my sister and my brother." Well, that's, in those words, to use a modern term, Jesus relativizes family values, beloved of a certain kind of political class, one feels. And it's a reminder that for Jesus, there's nothing more important than the will of God. For those in your church community you may not be able to stand or can only just barely tolerate are your brothers and sisters. Not a very comfortable thought, really, is it? And Jesus' cryptic little parable, no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods without first tying up the strong man. Well, think of all the ways Jesus may need to gain forced entry to our lives and then ransack them thoroughly and clear them of all the debris and the accumulated stuff that we've burdened ourselves with. Perhaps when all that's being cleared out, we'll be able to see that those we dislike and disagree with are our brother and sister